Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on LGBTQ plus rights in Iran. My name is Mana, and I'm an event officer at Report Out, and I'm here today with Sam, also an event officer. We're really excited to be here with you today. Um, After our presentation, we'll be joined by our panelists Mehdi and Waf, who will share their lived experiences as LGBTQ plus Iranians, answering a series of questions. This will give us a deeper insight into what it's truly like to be LGBTQ plus in Iran today. So here we are. I'm Mana, as I mentioned, the event officer, and Sam will be presenting the slides for you today. And then after that, we will be joined by Mehdi and Waf. Here are our lovely Mehdi and Waf. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. It's much appreciated. We'll talk to you soon.
You're welcome.
Right, a little bit about Report Out. Before we dive into the presentation, I'd like to quickly introduce Report Out. We are a global human rights organization advocating for the rights of sexual and gender minorities. Our work focuses on researching, documenting, and amplifying the voices of those facing oppression worldwide. And without further ado, let's begin. A brief history of homosexuality in Iran. So, to understand the current state of LGBTQ plus rights in Iran, we need to look at the country's historical relationship with same sex desire and gender norms. Before modernization, sexuality in pre 19th century Iran. Historically, sexuality in Iran was not seen through the rigid labels of homosexual and heterosexual as we understand them today. In pre-modern Iranian society, relationships between men often carried emotional and sexual significance, and these dynamics were celebrated in Persian poetry. Gender segregation was deeply entrenched. Men and women lived largely separate lives, only coming together through marriage, which was primarily about procreation rather than romance. Publicly, men were expected to marry women, but privately, same sex relationships were common, particularly among men. However, women's sexual agency was strictly confined to marriage, and they had little social presence outside of their domestic roles. Although Islam prohibited erotic love, it was tolerated as long as men fulfilled their societal and religious obligations. Sam?
Thank you very much, Mana. Thank you very much. So we're taking up from the colonial era and modernization, that is the 19th century and the Pahlavi dynasty. With increased interaction between Iran's and Western nations, particularly Britain, new ideas about gender and sexuality emerged. Iran's intellectuals, influenced by Europeans' norm, began associating women's oppression and men's same-sex relations with Iran's so-called backwardness. Many saw the integration of women into public life as a way to correct men's behavior and modernize society. Under Reza Shah's rule, marriage law was secularized. Women's divorce rights were expanded and higher marriage ages were enforced. The state promoted women's education and professional participation. However, these reforms also institutionalized rigid gender roles, reinforcing westernized notions of heterosexuality as a societal norm. This period also saw a fundamental shift in same sex desire, which had previously existed as a private and acceptable reality, which became stigmatized. As in Europe, homosexuality began to be viewed as a distinct identity rather than an act or a phase in life. Thank you. Back to you, Mana.
Thank you so much, Sam. Now we go to the post 1979 Islamic Revolution and LGBTQ plus repression. The 1979 Islamic Revolution marked a turning point in Iran's treatment of LGBTQ plus individuals. The new regime framed homosexuality as a Western import and associated it with the Pahlavi dynasty's secular policies. Even Persian homoerotic poetry, once celebrated, was now reinterpreted to fit Islamic principles. Under the new theocratic system, homosexuality was criminalized under Sharia law, with same sex acts punishable by execution. The government also intensified control over both men's and women's bodies. Despite the state repression, the 1990s saw the emergence of a gay identity in Iran. A younger, urbanized, and educated generation with access to the internet began adopting global concepts of sexual liberation. Facing oppression, they reclaimed the term gay as a positive identity in contrast to derogatory labels like hamjanspaz, which is the equivalent of the F word in English. Back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Mana. The current situation is about the systemic violence and discrimination amongst Iranians LGBTQ persons.
LGBTQ plus Iranians continue to face systematic oppression across multiple levels of society. The legal, educational, and healthcare systems all contribute to their marginalization. Legal system: 19% of LGBTQ plus individuals report experiencing verbal or physical violence from police and courts. Educational system: nearly half of, well, that is 46%, have faced violence in school, including teachers. Healthcare system: 19% report treatment, refusal, forced conversion therapy, or abuse. These all can be found at sixth rank. Um, Without protective laws, LGBTQ plus individuals also face social, domestic, and intimate partner violence with little resource. We'll go to. So here is a summary of historical trajectory um, for your knowledge, and we can go to the next slide. Current situation of same-sex attracted individuals in Iran. State-controlled homophobia and forced gender reassignment surgeries. Iranian leaders perpetuate anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric to justify systematic discrimination. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has called homosexuality a great sin that will destroy the nation. Such rhetoric fosters societal violence and emboldens citizens to harass or attack LGBTQ plus individuals. Iran performs the second highest number of gender reassignment surgeries in the world. While trans individuals should have the right to transition freely, many are coerced into transitioning due to societal pressure, medical medical misdiagnosis, or legal threats. Some arrested for same-sex relations are given the option of undergoing gender reassignment instead of facing execution.
Controlled homophobia and lack of protective laws. This has happened beyond legal punishment. So Iran forces homophobia through the military, through the police, and also through propaganda tactics. In the military, LGBTQ plus individuals can obtain military exemptions by admitting their sexuality. However, this information is often used to extort them, leaving them vulnerable to lifelong discrimination. Also, there are legal risks. which made me fear violence due to risk of being charged with public decency.
Despite these oppressive conditions, Iran's LGBTQ plus community continues to resist and build solidarity. Daneshju Park in Tehran serves as a semi-secret gathering place for LGBTQ plus individuals. The Women Life Freedom movement has seen LGBTQ plus Iranians take an active role in the fight for gender equality and civil rights. Their activism stresses that true liberation must be intersectional, embracing all marginalized groups, including sexual minorities. Here is a summary of act of resilience for you to look at. And we can move to the next slide where we welcome our lovely panelists. Now we are honored to welcome our panelists, Waf and Mehdi. To kick things off, would you both like to introduce yourselves? Mehdi, please go ahead.
Hello, and thank you for this panel. I'm Mehdi, and I'm an Iranian gay. It's been 3 years. I've been in the UK, moved to the UK, and before that, I lived in Iran. And I am now working on professional. And whatever, what else can I add here?
That's perfect, Mehdi. Thank you so much. I just wanted the audience
Thank
to
you.
get a sense of who you are. Thank you so much. Waf, to you now.
Hi, thank you for this panel. It feels really good to have this opportunity to talk about this kind of things. I'm Vaf. I have been in UK for a year and 4 months now. I lived in Iran for 25 years. I'm queer, and I study film outside of London.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Waf. Um, I would like to say that the questions I'll be going through are just a guide to help structure the discussion and keep it flowing smoothly. So they're not strict or limiting, so feel free to engage naturally as we go along. Um, Also, if you don't have anything to add for a question, that's absolutely fine. We can skip that question. Now let's go to the first question. How would you describe the experience of growing up LGBTQ plus in Iran? Were there any moments that shaped your understanding of your identity? Who would like to start with this question?
I'd like to start here. One thing that it is important to consider is that um, the experiences are different from generation to generation. So when I was younger, when I was teenager, I had no access to internet, and then after that, after the coming internet and everyone had access to internet, it was a big uh, improvement, a big development in um, finding identities and getting knowledge about LGBTQ and related concepts. So for me, it was like uh, a big moment when I had daily access to the internet around the age 19 and 20, and I could go to chat rooms and find people and finally find about the word, the term gay. Before that, it wasn't so clear to me. I mean, I thought that it's some kind of problem or something that is um, just for me, some sense of being unique and not knowing anyone similar to me. So that really changed everything for me after I realized so there are other peoples and there are some terms that describe these kind of people. So, and I think in during the time, these kind of development like internet and then social media and even the satellite channels changed the thoughts of people a lot. But briefly, I can say having access to the internet and then later to social media and platforms was a stage in my life that changed many things.
Thank you so much, Mehdi, for sharing that. I can also add that the internet is really a big part of our lives. When I was a teenager, I got to know my identity as well through the internet. Of course, we had to use proxies for that because of the filtering in Iran. But I totally get what you mean. Waf, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so as Mehdi said, I think different people will have different experiences because of a lot of things. So there's a lot of layers to how you experience this in Iran. I mean, the most obvious part of it is the government and the laws, but there's other layers to what someone experiences. Well, for me, I think I was not living in like the center of Tehran. I was in the outskirts of Tehran, and we were some kind of we were that those kind of like isolated families. We were not really going into Tehran to really see that modern side of the city. So we were really living in our little bubble, and so my experience didn't really started with how I was facing the government or the society. My experience really started from inside our house because I was born in a nomadic family. So my parents live 4 or 5 months in mountains, and then they come back to the city to continue their city life. So, um, as someone in a nomadic family, which is about tribes and like men being like the manager of those tribes, my father was one of those important people in that tribe, and everyone were expecting him to give them a son just like him, a bit aggressive, like being bossy and taking care of the tribe, and like being able to fight with the people who are going to hurt the tribe. So, and then as I was growing up, it was all turning into the complete opposite of what he was expecting to see. So, in nomadic tribes and in nomadic families, it's even much more stricter how they expect a woman and a man to be, to talk, to behave, and to act their role. And I was not fitting into any of those. It wasn't just about me having a different sexual identity. I had a visible feminine um, aspect to me, which was my voice. So, so it wasn't even about finding out about who I am internally, but it was about this external thing that was really visible to them. So I couldn't even hide it. Um, so I think that's why I think most of my identity and my struggles and my fight got shaped in my family instead of in contrast with the government. Um, so yeah, if we want to keep talk about if we keep talking about this, I can bring a lot of my experiences in terms of how it got shaped in the family dynamic and in the tribe dynamic instead of how it got shaped in the government. But I also can say that they're very related to each other. So they're different versions of each other, these dynamics. Yeah.
Thank you
I
so
want to
much.
add something, Nana, if it's
Of
okay.
course, yeah.
So there's a very important point that Raf mentioned, that there are different experiences depending on your life and your lifestyle. I mean, when we say Iran, for many people outside Iran, it may seem some kind of consistent or similar experiences. But if you were in big cities, it's much more different than small towns or villages. So it's not the same at all. The access to the facilities, to the internet, to the knowledge is not the same at all. And it really shapes the experience people have, LGBTQ community. So we should always consider that. That's a really important factor.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, Mehdi, and Waf as well. So I would like to add that geographically speaking, when it comes to urbanized cities like Tehran, people, especially the younger generation, are being more open-minded. Um, there is there are more resources. The internet, we've got better connection in the capital. So it is different for anyone that lives outside Tehran. I would say the capital does open a gate to, I would say, a smoother experience of finding your identity as an LGBTQ plus person in Iran. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your experiences about that. If there's nothing to add to that question, I would like to move to the second question. Thank you. Persian poetry and historical texts reflect a more fluid perception of same sex relationships in the past. How do you think Iran's cultural and political shifts have changed the perception of LGBTQ plus identities over time?
So there are some historical changes, as you mentioned in previous slides before, that in specific era we experienced some changes in the whole culture or the whole perception about gender and sexuality. But there's a more recent thing we can talk about easier than it's after Islamic Revolution, because the Islamic Revolution changed things in many different ways, and political and Islamic constitution are so engaged together. So when we talk about political, uh, it's the cultural shift or the cultural changes is part of that. I think this kind of uh, I can say misogyny, masculinity, this all these things shaped this shift. There are more pressure on all minorities or women or anything that doesn't match well with those perception, those that Islamic perception about people or good people and bad people. So I think the main important or the main outstanding change we can mention uh, in the past decades is the Islamic Revolution. One thing I want to say is maybe not directly relevant, but you mentioned at the beginning of the question about the Persian poetry. So it's kind of a funny experience I had. So I uh, love Persian poetry, and when I was teenager, I read a lot of books, poems. By the way, I realized I'm not sure what date, or but I realized that um, I was always fantasizing a boy when I was reading about lovers and those um, images of uh, like heavenly love and all of those romantic feelings. But I didn't know that it was something. It wasn't conscious, something that happened unintentionally in my mind. And then during um, accepting myself, I was okay. It was a sign. It was a very good sign that I always had this feeling or this perception about the person that poet is talking about. I think that poetry, Iranian poetry, give you space to fantasize that it can be boy or girl. There are some evidences in some specific uh, uh, poems, but generally uh, you cannot um, you cannot say that it's about a boy or a girl. However, I think um, it's more easier to talk about the political shift because the cultural changes are more um, subtle or more nuances. They have more nuances. Um, but yeah, we can, if we see about, for example, if we review past 100 years in Iran, that Islamic Revolution is a very big moment.
Thank you so much, Mehdi. Waf, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would like to say I agree with what Mehdi said about Persian poetry, about how it's not really mentioning a specific gender or a specific identity when they're like talking about love. Actually, we were discussing about a documentary that was made in UK, which was about pronouns. So it was like this documentary all about pronouns and like the discussion about them. And then I was like, actually, if you dub that documentary in Persian, it wouldn't make sense because we don't have those things. So this is just a concern that you have in your limited language, but like that wouldn't work out. Like this documentary wouldn't work out in Persian language. I think you can sense that in Persian poetry as well. And that's really interesting. I never thought about that until Meti really mentioned it about Persian poetry. But I also like to share a personal opinion, which people can kind of disagree. I think it would be cherry picking of history to only talk about what the Islamic Revolution did to Iran. And so I think that all of those struggles and problems, whatever we label them, were already in Iran. But the Islamic Revolution exaggerated them a lot. So, for example, a couple of years before the Islamic Revolution, the first and last gay marriage happened in Tehran, and the queen also attended the wedding. But then, if you search the newspapers that were out after that wedding, you can sense that the general public were so homophobic and they wouldn't really understand what's happening. So I can say that Islamic Revolution is an exaggerated version of something that existed in Iran. But yeah, so it's a much wider fight. So I think the fight is not just the fight won't stop with stopping the regime. There's a lot of things that we should really work on.
I can add something here. I totally agree that um, there are cultural contexts that it is historical and it is not directly. Uh, it's not suddenly made by Islamic Revolution or any other specific moment. But one important thing is that a good government, a democratic government, a liberal government, can always be progressive in shaping the culture or to leading the culture. So, I mean, in any country, if there is no government that have this in mind to be progressive, to take care of human rights, to pay attention to human rights, uh, it can easily face negative side of the society. So when you're talking about the society and people, it's like a mutual way between government and people. I definitely believe that if we have a good government during the time, in long term, not in short term, it can shape the culture and it can be caught by law by allowing things and forbidding things, like hate crime, forbidding hate crime, and allowing people to openly talk about things and educate others. it's possible to make a space for positive thoughts and feeling to grow up. So I agree at the same time that it wasn't um, totally injected by Islamic Revolution or other changes in the society. But if there's a big positive change, it can lead to good results and consequences.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mehdi. I would like to add that in the Pahlavi dynasty, the government was really trying hard to secularize everything. And but the thing is, the misogyny and the homophobia that was ingrained in the society, it was just deeper than that, and it's just not omitted overnight, if that makes sense. So thank you so much for that. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add before I move to the next question?
I just would like to say that there's a lot of things to learn about how Pahlavi family approached this. It can tell us that gay rights is not about um, having a fancy wedding in Tehran and putting on a show to show gays. You have to work deeper than that. You have to invest in the education. You have to think about how you can work through some of the very internalized homophobia that is existing in the people. So it's not just about I'm just going to wear fancy clothes and have like a suit, and I'm going to decorate this hotel in Tehran with the most chic and expensive jewels that I got from Paris. So it doesn't work like that. You have to be much more detailed about how you approach it. Yeah.
Thank you for the point that you made, Lafa. I do agree with you. Thank you for that. Anything else, guys? Or should I move to the next one?
Yeah, go forward.
Cheers. So, what are some of the biggest challenges LGBTQ plus individuals in Iran face in their daily lives, whether at home, in school, at work, or in public spaces? I know this is a very broad question, um, but any elaboration on that would be great. Thank you so much, guys.
So, as I said, I do not have the experience of being in the center of Tehran all the time. So I only started going to Tehran often when I was 22 or 23. But one of the biggest challenges I saw and I heard from my friends, and I even experienced myself, was that how much how much of the authentic parts of yourself you should cut down to be able to survive in Iranian society. So I remember I was working in a media company which was related to the national TV and radio, uh, national TV and radio building. So it was like a smaller version of it, which would produce smaller amounts of content and then send it to them. And I went there with blonde hair and a lot of accessories and eyeliner. And when I came out, I was a totally different person. And they kind of oppressed me in a way. And they made me feel that if I want to survive, I have to do that. And sometimes I'm angry of myself that I actually did those things. But it was in a very smooth way, the way it happened. So they would have a meeting with me, and there was this woman with proper Islamic chador, like the long hijab that they wear, and she would be like, Okay, Lester, I know you're so dedicated. I know you're so talented. But there's also some things that you should consider if you want to continue working here. And we would love to have you here. So I would like you to listen to some of the things that I'm going to say. Um, and then she started with, when I go out of Iran, I don't wear hijab. But when I come to this company, I wear my hijab because I want to survive and I want to get to where I want in this system. So you should do the same. So gradually, I was growing more beard, even though I didn't like it. I removed all my accessories. I was not wearing colorful glasses anymore. I was wearing long shirts, and it was never enough for them. It was never enough for them. So they would keep having these meetings with me, reminding things with me. They started following my Twitter account, and they would, like the investor of the company even would message me and say, like, I know that you changed a lot of things about yourself, but if you also can control what you say on social media, that would be so good. You're going to have a much more comfortable life in this country. And gradually, I thought that they're always observing me, even when I was like having a date with someone, and even when we were in bed together. I, they planted this seed of fear in me that I kind of am always being observed because I'm working there, because I'm working in a national radio. So it was um, it was like I'm being emotionally abused, and it didn't really felt good to be in that situation. And also after the protests happened, I shared a blog on Virgul website, which is a Persian blogging website. And then I got a call from the investor of the company with like an unknown number, and he was like, I read your blog, it was interesting, I would like to have a chat about it with you. And then he said, I told them to remove the blog, but I still have it. Would you like me to edit it for you so you can share it again? Even though it seems very surreal, but it was scary to be in that situation, because the way these people use their body language, the way these people really insert their dominance into a conversation, the way these people insert their dominance into your mind, is really scary. And I think that's what has been changed in the way they torture people mentally in Islamic Republic. They don't really cut your fingers off anymore, but they have this indirect ways that they play with minds of their victims and the people who would like to have control. And I think that is what's happening now. So if a Western person goes to Iran, they may come back and be like, I didn't see any aggression, any direct aggression toward the LGBTQ plus members of the society. But what they don't see is this indirect aggressions that are being put on women and queer people in Iran. And these are even more horrifying and more damaging than someone slapping you in the street. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Wafa, for that insight into what you've experienced in Iran. Mehdi, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, I wanted to talk about two different aspects of this question. The first one is what people, LGBTQ people, are facing in daily life, and the second is my personal experience. First, I think there are many different bad experiences and events happening for people, LGBTQ people, inside Iran. And when we talk about LGBTQ plus people, we need to even separate gay, lesbian, transsexual, bisexual, because each of these groups have different experiences. For example, if you're trans, it can be more complicated. You have permission to do gender confirmation surgery, but you face many challenges in the society if you're lesbian, you have kind of more limited, as I heard from my friends, less access. Like the dating app are not that common as for gay people, and it's more difficult to find friends and people similar to you. So I can mostly talk about gay people, as I had more gay friends in Iran. So there are some harsh experience, like if you want to be yourself and express yourself in your behavior, in your attitude, your wearing and clothes, everything, you may face different things from people and from the government. So they can stop you on the street, they can bully you in every public spaces, and it happens a lot, even in these days. And so this is the individual part. If you want to have party, there's always a risk, as you know, that police can come and stop you. It's not just about gay people. Even when there's a party with gays and boys together, and if especially they are drinking alcohol, so always there is this risk, the background that police can come or someone can report you. And when it comes to the LGBTQ parties, uh, they are more vulnerable because always, I guess, any time that there's a party and there's a report that police arrested them, it's like they were Satanists. I don't know why they always call LGBTQ people Satanists. So it's like a cult that's very underground, negative thing happening, and you don't know, and we arrested them. Um, and when it comes to work or public spaces, as Vaf said, so you should um, limit yourself. Uh, and there's always more demand. That be more like what we say. It's like when you live in Iran, there's always that big brother. There is that voice. You know, one important thing we shouldn't forget is that Iran is a totalitarian government, totalitarian system, and in these kind of systems, this surveillance or this lack of privacy, this kind of attacking privacy goes down and down. It's like a hierarchy from the government to the uh, authorities and managers and maybe families, schools, all the institutions, and goes to the individuals. So it's like a something that spreads among the society and acts in many different ways. Uh, this is one thing, and we can talk a lot about uh, experiences and negative events that happen to people. Like some people arrested, some people went to jail or rejected by family. I don't want to say it's a common thing or it's the main thing in Iran, but these can happen. And as you know, there's always this Sharia, this Islamic law that based on that there is a even death penalty for having sex between gay people. It's not common. We don't hear that much anymore about this penalty. But when you know that's written there, and if they want, they can act based on that. So it's scary. But I want to also talk about my own experience. I can say I was kind of lucky because I didn't face any uh, big, harsh situation. That I had a few things, but in general, I had a kind of normal life. But in some sense, it can seem normal, but it's never normal because you should pretend. You should always pretend someone you're not. Whenever I'm in a situation like school, university, and work, it's always this thought for me that maybe this person or that person is homophobic, and uh, it's like a hidden threat from them. And after living for a long time in such a country, it internalized, and you have your judgment even without knowing that person. So it's always that judgment, and maybe they want to harm you in different ways, even just by ignoring you, because as you know, this um, behavior can affect you in many different ways. Um, but my personal problem is that I think I was living in a bubble. I made a bubble, a good bubble, but it was a bubble at the end of the day, and I had to live inside that. And I was always aware of the walls of, or the shell of that bubble. So that extra consciousness, that extra attention, it's really exhausting, and it's uh, the minimum thing that you have in your life when you're living as an LGBTQ person in Iran. You always have that. Even if you have a good life, you have your own supportive community, friends, even if your family is supportive, you always live in a bubble. Your bubble can be bigger or smaller, but there is a bubble, and you cannot avoid that. You cannot escape from that. So for me, it was like I wasn't 100% myself. I knew that, but after coming here, it was it became even more clear to me. It was like some things I wasn't aware of, and it was because of living in that totalitarian country. Uh, I feel more liberated, more free here. Even walking on the street, it's like walking on the street in Iran. It's like there are eyes on you. You're just walking with normal clothes and everything. You do nothing, but it's like you're under radar. And I don't have that feeling here. It's my personal feeling, and I cannot I cannot point to any specific behavior or attitude to people that because of this or because of that, but it's from the whole living experience in a country like Iran. And so I want to say some things are easy to say, they are tangible and you can mention them. But some of the experiences are um, kind of abstract or personal and even difficult to verbalize. So yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Mehdi. I think when I heard both of your stories, I've got some some things to mention as well. So I moved to the UK when I was 19. So all the experiences that I have are related to when I was younger, especially in high school. So as a lesbian woman, when I was in high school and I was finding my own sexuality, the thing about Iran is the fact that we do not have protective laws around the LGBTQ plus issues. Not only that, but it's criminalized. So you always feel like you're walking on eggshells. Um, and in high school, I had a crush on a girl, and I hinted that I didn't even openly told her that I liked her. Right? I hinted to that, and I was reported to the school's counselor that I've got what they called homosexual tendencies. Um, and the counselor of the school um, thought that it was a great idea to call my mom and tell her, like, basically outing me, and tell her that, well, your daughter has got these homosexual tendencies, so um, basically she basically told my mom to do something about it, which is kind of a threat. if you really think about it. And with the lack of protective laws, you panic. So this is just one example of what people, LGBTQ plus people in Iran experience. I just wanted to point that out as well. Thank you so much, guys.
Sorry, can I also add something else?
Absolutely, go for it.
About the laws and how they're not protective. That's a really good point. It's a really good point, because you would wonder, if someone abused me, where can I go to follow this up? If I go to the police, they're just going to be mean to me, and not only being mean, they may even call my family and share the secret I'm holding in my heart with them, that maybe I'm not ready to tell them about what I'm feeling. And it's just so bad. If I want to get a bit more personal, I can say that when I was working in the national radio, I was just looking for opportunities, and there was a producer in Radio Iran. His name is Ali Reza Taban, and he would really visit the studio that I was recording in it weekly. He would watch me for a long time. I was sensing some uncomfortable feelings, and then he messaged me and he said, I have a personal studio in Tehran, and I would like to work with you on something. And he invited me, and I was like 22, 21, something like that. And I was really willing to grab any opportunity that is coming my way without really being cautious. And I went there, and he opened the door. We went in. When he opened the door, there was no studio. There was just an empty house with covered walls with newspapers. He pushed me in, and he was like, "Oh, hey, Vaf, welcome to my house. I hope you have a great time here." He was like very chill about it. He locked the door. He put the keys in his pockets. He made me, what is the English word for it? Mixture of banana and milk. And he said, "Okay, so there's a text there. I would like you to read that out." And I didn't know what's happening. I was so panicked. And I started reading the text, and he would say louder, and I would say it louder, and he was like, louder, louder. And then he came to me and he was like, "You're kind of good, but if you want me to help you, you have to do something for me." And while he was doing that, he was like touching my head, and he was touching my ears, and he was touching my neck. And then he was like, "I hope you have enough time, because I would like to spend some time with you tonight." And in that moment, I kind of sensed what is happening, but I didn't want to believe it. And then I called one of the women that I know in the national radio, not called, but like messaged them and told them that this is happening and help me. And she started calling my phone. He became suspicious. He answered the phone himself, and that woman started threatening him. And then he started slapping my face and like kicking my head, not kicking, but like punching my head with his hands. And he would say things like, he told, when he was when he was talking with her, he said, I know what kind of rats you are. I know these kind of people. You are born in the street sides, and you're rats, and you're just looking for some kind of opportunity to grow in the society, but you're just rats. And he started humiliating me by saying that his father is a doctor, my father is a nomadic farmer, and which is really, I think that's something to be proud of. But he was like humiliating me with that, and he was calling my family rats and me a rat, and he was like, I'm the producer of Radio Iran, that is my home, and if you want to gain something in that house, you have to listen to what I want from you. But then that woman was threatening him a lot. He got my phone, he got my laptop, he got all my money, he got my wallet, he got my bank card. He kicked me out of the house and he said, I will never let you get to where you want. And when I talked about the protective laws, that's where what I wanted to say comes in. I could never tell this to someone because he was a really famous producer. And people said that if you do that, you can't work there anymore. He's not going to let you bring up this situation in the court the way you want. And the worst part was also, I couldn't tell my dad because my dad also had that kind of patriarchy and homophobia in him. If I would tell him, he wouldn't let me do the things that I would wanted to do, like voice acting, voice narrating, theater, filmmaking. So it's still a secret, and he doesn't know about it. And I'm in that moment. I was in a taxi. I was coming back. Someone agreed to bring me back to our house for free. I was crying, and in that moment, I was also crying not for myself, but for any situation like that is happening right now, and those innocent boys and girls and queer people are wondering, who can I tell about? Who is the person that I can tell about what happened to me? Who can help me with this? It's only going to bring me more struggles if I open up about this. So a lot of these kind of stories are buried down in people's heart because they just want to survive in that society. And if you open up about what you're going through, they will take away everything that you've worked hard for. So I think it's important to talk about that side of it a lot because in case of danger, there's no one to go to really ask for help. Yeah.
And if you do, the thing is that you're gonna be blamed for it because of the laws that are around um, around these issues. Thank you so much, Vaf, and I am so sorry for the experience that you had. What role does family play in the lives of LGBTQ plus Iranians? Have you seen instances of support, or is rejection a more common stance?
I can say there's a big change in past, I don't know, 20 years or so. In recent days, I hear a lot about parents being more supportive. One reason is that they have more knowledge, thanks to the internet and the movies and TV series and satellite channels. So there are many more sources of information, and they have some knowledge about LGBTQ people, and because of that, they can be more supportive. It's just statistically talking about the situation. I don't want to say this situation is good, but it's definitely better than 20 years ago, for example. I hear a lot from people that their parents, especially their mothers, are supportive, or they don't care, at least. It's not a big deal for them. But when I was younger, it was really different, because it was a big taboo at that time, and we couldn't talk about it, positive or negative. It was just something you didn't have to talk about it. Um, and in my family, I have my experience is that after, I don't know, 23, 24, it started to asking me, when do you want to get married? And it wasn't just my parents, it was like uncles and aunts and cousins and everyone. It's kind of common in Iran that people ask such a private question and they want an answer. And if you say, I don't want to, the next question is why? And if you insist on that, they can get kind of suspicious about you. That's what's the problem with you? It's like there should be a problem. So and it's not easy situation for many people. I knew people, some friends, they had to marry to a girl because of the pressure from the family. But I think it can be a bit better in these days uh, for many different reasons. But that's what I can say from my personal experience.
Thank you so much, Mehdi. Vaf, would you like to add to that?
I actually find it quite hard to talk about this, but I can say that the family dynamic is a smaller version of the dynamic that we see in Islamic Republic. So if you really focus on it, how they work, how the father figure um, presents itself in Iranian families, um, you can find a lot of similarities between how the supreme leader treats the population. Um, so yeah, that's what I can say. But about family, I think family is really important because if you've been bullied and harassed in your family, you won't have a good sense of self-esteem to face the challenges that Islamic Republic is going to put in front of you. Um, and I kind of experienced that a lot. I would have days of my father praying to God in front of me, and he would say, "Oh God, why am I fire? But why did you give me ashes?" So he would kind of prefer that I'm not existing, and something else which is matching his sense of fire would exist. And those moments really hurt your self esteem. And yeah, um, yeah, I think, but also I find myself quite lucky in some terms. I hear very horrible stories from some of my friends, like their parents pouring hot water on them because they saw them like wearing feminine clothes. I didn't have that harsh experiences, but it was an attack on my self esteem from my father. So that's what I experienced, I guess. And like one time when I was a kid, I fell down from the stairs and I was eating a peach and it got stuck in my throat and I couldn't breathe. And my mom said that I was begging your father to bring you to the hospital, but he didn't love you, so he was like, if he's going to die, just let him die. I'm not going to bring him to the hospital. So my mother would really beg my uncle, which I lost recently, to um, bring me to the hospital so they can save me from choking. Um, so yeah, I get so emotional when I talk about my father, and I think it's the same for a lot of people who are queer or from the LGBTQ plus family, and I think there's a lot of hurt happening in Iranian families, but we're always really good at covering it all and going out like nothing has happened. And you see that dynamic in the Islamic Republic as well. So it's a bigger circle of what is happening in Iranian families. So yeah, I think the root of the problem is the families, and I think if someone is going to really talk about these things, they should invest and focus more on what is happening in Iranian families and the patriarchy and the father figure. Because if you fix that, it will also fix the bigger circle, which is the Islamic Republic. But that's just a personal opinion. People may disagree with that.
Thank you so much. I think we can move to the last question. Um, what message do you have for those outside Iran who want to support LGBTQ plus rights in the country? What actions can truly make a difference, in your opinion?
So I think it is a tricky question because there is a risk of guiding people to do some activist thing, and we cannot be sure how effective they can be or what would be the consequences. But there are tangible things people can do. I think making connections with people inside Iran in any ways they can, in any platform they can. I don't know, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, maybe some dating apps, anywhere. It can be a big help. That connection, that someone that lives in a better condition, better maybe lifestyle, can be sampled, can be promising that you can um, be in a better position, or there are different perspectives, there are different futures, it can get better. So when someone is in a good position, it's kind of privilege. That privilege can be translated to this kind of help, to communicating, to get connection with people. Sometimes just talking with people is the big help, because in many situations there's nothing to do. If we want to be honest, there is less things to do, the actual things, but we can always talk, we can always have this communication, share experiences, and based on my experience, it helps a lot when people have these connections and can talk to others like similar to themselves. It's really good. It's make them more comfortable, or make them tolerate the situation better. However, I something I can say is that getting more knowledge about LGBTQ people in Iran and Iran itself can be definitely helpful, because what I said, you said, Raf said, these are separated uh, uh, living experiences. They are separated narrations, and they can hear many different narrations. Some people can say we are happy. It's possible. I don't want to say they are not happy LGBTQ people in Iran. Some of them are really in a really horrible situation. So if you want to have a realistic understanding about them, you shouldn't judge by a few narrations, a few stories. There are many different stories, more than 18 million people living in Iran in many different areas and situation. So knowing more about them and trying to get a better understanding can be definitely helpful. So if they want to do uh, more effective things, there are always ways to connecting with the organizations, like report out can be helpful. I'm not sure about the potentials, but there are always other ways. If someone is really enthusiastic to do something, can find a way. But I can say the simplest and easiest way is just make connections and get knowledge.
Thank you so much, Mehdi, for sharing that. Waf, would you like to add?
I agree with everything Mehdi said, and I also want to say that it's not just about them helping Iranian people. It's about, I think at this point, a lot of things are changing in the world, and it seems like it's just going to get worse. And Iranians have been fighting the regime and the patriarchy for a long time. There's a lot of things that they can learn from Iranian people, because now they're facing the things that we faced like a long time ago, and there's a lot that they can learn, Americans specifically can learn from Iranians. So I think when you face an Iranian person, an Iranian woman, an Iranian LGBTQ plus member, listen to them, but truly listen to them, and don't try to overly politically correct them. They have this traumatic experience with a certain kind of environment, a certain kind of religion, a certain kind of family dynamic, and they have the right to talk about it. What I sense a lot of times when I open up about my experiences is that people say that are you being Islamophobic? Why are you being mean to Muslims? I don't even know where is that coming from. But if you truly believe that they are being Islamophobic, listen to them because they're not lying. That experience is coming from somewhere. And maybe if you listen, you can really understand what is happening. But what I see is that they always try to politically correct the Iranians. And they're so scared that if they view the negative sides of a religion or a culture, they're going to lose their sense of being politically correct. They're going to be called Islamophobic. They're going to be called this phobic or that phobic. I think it's like a madness that is stopping people from actually understanding and listening something. It removes the compassion and empathy from the conversation, and it makes it a robotic conversation that is just trying to be politically correct and not really cares about what someone went through. So I think that's really important. Listen, be patient, even if you think there's some certain, if you're certain, if you're sure that there's some Islamophobic stuff being mentioned there, be patient with them, listen to them, and see where it leads as they're sharing their experiences. Because these things happen to us. What about that? So, what are we going to do with them? Are we just going to remove them because it's going to offend some people or some people who are practicing some specific thing? So, when are we going to talk about them? How should we talk about them? Are we just going to shut up about them because someone is getting triggered because they're practicing that? I think that's important, and our experience is valid, and just listen and be compassionate and be more empathic instead of trying to be politically correct all the time. That's what I wanted to say.
One small thing I want to add to what Rafa said. I totally agree. I think there is a mutual way of understanding each other. So I want to say things like Islamophobia, wokeism, critics to wokeism, all of these things have different meaning in countries like Iran. So Western narration is one narration, is the common narration, but it's not what people experience, or it's not the criteria to um, understand, not even judge people. So, and when we talk about, for example, Islamophobia, we should consider that we were living in an Islamic country, so we have the first-hand experience. So that can be some, even if you're wrong, there is something valuable in that experience, and so we shouldn't have a guard at the beginning. We should encounter each other, we should communicate with each other without the guards, when specifically when it comes to this kind of sensitive things like wokeism, anti-wokeism, Islamophobia, sexism, all of these things. So there are different narrations. If we want to have a good judgment, we should first listen. That's absolutely right.
Thank you so much, both of you. I think you uh, put it the best way possible. I don't, you guys said everything that needed to be said. I don't think I can add any more to that. So that brings us to the end of uh, our presentation. A huge thank you to our incredible panelists, Mehdi and Waf, for sharing their personal experiences and insights with us. Your voices are so important, and we truly appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much. And thanks for Report Out for setting this panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Report Out,
Um,
for this panel.
We also want to thank all of you in the audience for joining us, listening, and engaging with this important discussion. Your support means everything. If you'd like to help us continue our work advocating for LGBTQ plus rights worldwide, please consider donating to Report Out at www.reportout.org. Every contribution helps us continue our mission. These are our social links that you can find on the screen now. Thank you again, and we hope you stay connected with us and continue these conversations beyond today.